Hello and welcome. Today I wanted to share my process of moving Next.js API Route into a server action and how we can use it along with a form on the client side. Recently, I came across this package called NextSafeAction, which helps you to validate the data that you're receiving on the server action without having to do it explicitly inside your function. As you can see in this example, they actually accept a Zod schema and validate it for you so that when you write your function, you already have access to the past input. Let's take a quick look at what we're doing today. I have a contact form on this contact page, and currently I have in my API directory, I have a slash contact route, and within that I have a route.ts. So this API route is exposing the post method, and I get access to the body content, and then I have to pass the body content through my Zod schema. Only then can I go through the logic of this endpoint. So let's refactor this into a Next.js server action along with the NextSafeAction package. In my app directory, I've created an actions folder, and within that I have contact.ts. Let's start with adding the use server directive. This is what tells Next.js that these functions are going to be called as server actions, and behind the scenes, Next actually creates endpoints for this, and then you can just call it in your client side or server side code, and it goes and hits that API endpoint without you having to put in any more effort. As you can see, my AI is already helping me a bit and calling in the action client. But let's look at where exactly this action client is coming from. So in my lib directory, I have this safeaction.ts, and this is just a simple export of the create safe action client. There's a lot more options that you can pass into this. Next safe action also has documentation on how you can have authenticated requests. This is just a simple example, so we don't have authentication as part of this, but just so you know, this is the code that we're invoking here when we call action client. And then we have the contact form schema. So let's start by exporting a const called contact and make this equal to the action client. And then the action client has access to the schema. And when we pass in our contact form schema, we can chain in the action method and get access automatically to our past input. If you look at what other stuff we have access to here, we also have other metadata and the context, which you can use to build authenticated requests. But for now, we're going to keep it simple. We're just going to use the past input. And I'm going to copy some of the code from our API endpoint. This is not going to be a very deep dive into exactly what I'm doing in this endpoint. Actually, all that I'm doing is getting the name, email, and message, and then sending two emails. One to the person saying that we've received a message, and one to us with the actual contents of the message. Let's start clearing some of these errors. So these properties are, instead of coming from the body, they're going to come from the past input. And let's import this send email from our library. And finally, we just have to get rid of these next responses and just return regular objects. I'm just going to return an object with a key of success, and that's going to be false here since we're sending out an error. And we'll do the same thing here. And here we're going to leave the message as it is and add a success of true. So that's all for the refactor here in our server action. Let's quickly go to the client side form and accept this data a little better. So in our contact form here, we have a fetch call with the post method and our data in the body. Instead of this, we can actually get a response back and just call the contact from our server action. Let's call this function and pass it in the data that we get from our form. And then instead of checking the res.status, we can actually just check the res.success. Oops. Oh, I forgot to await this. So once we've awaited that, we can actually see what we get back from the response. First of all, we get the data, but other than the data, we also get some validation errors from Zod as well as any server errors that may have occurred. So instead of simply checking the data.success, we can actually check if there are any server errors or validation errors, or if our res.data.success was not true. and go ahead and show an error. So something went wrong, please try again later. And if all of that is fine, then we can go on and say thank you for reaching out and we'll get back to you soon. That should be it on the refactor. Let's go ahead and test this out. And if I submit, hopefully we get the success message. And that works. So as you can see, as the person who submitted the form, I've received a response saying that they've received my message and they'll get back. And as the admin, I've got the email for the person who sent the contact and what their message is. Hopefully you found this helpful. Just a very simple example of refactoring API endpoint into a server action in Next.js. This package NextSafeAction is also a really great addition to my arsenal because it just removes some of the boilerplate of having to parse a Zord schema and checking for those errors. It just abstracts that away, and also they have great support for authenticated requests. So that's definitely something that I'm going to look into when I need it. If you've made it this far, you might want to see me again. So definitely hit that subscribe button, and while you're down there, hit the like as well. And until next time, keep learning and keep building.